Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is George Herrera with the Queens Home team at Keller Williams Realty. Today I'm answering a question that I found online. Actually, it's a real estate question where I figured it would be a good one to answer on the channel because I don't think we ever shot a video answering this question, and it is a common question that we get once people actually go into actually enter the market and go into contract. So here's the question that I found, and the question is not from Queens, but I'll relate it specifically to Queens and New York City. So the subject line is escrow's closing date has passed, but it actually hasn't closed. Why? So here's the background. The escrow is just closing, so in other states, but the closing was supposed to happen on February 5th. But it's been 2 weeks already and it hasn't closed. I really don't know what's going on, but I'm desperate to move out. We got a new apartment and they're waiting for our property to close and holding that apartment for us while we wait to close on the sale. So then it says, the buyer and I signed everything we need to sign, first time seller. You know, how common do situations like this happen? And is there something I can do to speed up the process? So the first thing to answer here is, here in New York at least, most of the closings will be on or about. They'll have a closing date in the contract, but we've never even seen an on or before, but it's usually it'll say on or about 60 days. So let's say we go into contract today, the closing date would be on or about whatever 60 days out would be. That's the most typical thing that you'll see. For co-ops, it might be on or about 90 days. On or about means that here in New York, usually the buyer and the seller get a 30-day, let's call it a grace period. So if for some reason either party is not ready to close at the date set in the contract, each party will get an extra 30 days to be able to close without being in breach of the contract. It's like a little grace period that both the buyer and the seller can get. And that's because the contract is on or about. There is something called on or before. So if the contract, let's say, said on or before, March 3rd, and you get to March 3rd and you don't close, then you're actually in breach. If you don't close by that date, you're in breach of the contract. We've sold over 500 properties in our career, and we've never done an on or before contract. We've never seen it done. And the reason why is because not only is that risky for the buyer, so let's say you're a seller and you want on or before because you want to close by that date, something could happen on your end that requires you to need some more time. And now that you have that in place, you would be in breach if you can't close by that date. So it's very rare. We've actually never seen it, but it does exist on or before the exact date. And then you have to close by that date. And if not, then whatever party can't close is in breach of the contract. Very rare, never seen it here, but most of the time what you're going to see is an on or about closing date. And here in New York, so for this person specifically, if they were in New York and they were asking, the closing date says March 15th in the contract, why haven't we closed? And we would explain to them it's because it's an on or about closing date, which means it's a moving target. It's not set in stone. You're targeting that date, but if for one reason or another, buyer or seller are not ready to close by that time, typically they'll be granted a 30-day extension, like a grace period, where they have another 30 days to be able to close. And if you can't close by that period, by the extra 30 days, that's when you typically are in breach of the contract. And that's when legal implications can come into play. A buyer can back out and get their deposit back, things like that. So this seller, I'm sure they're anxious. If this is an on or about state where they also do contracts like that, then that could be why. But here in New York, if you have a closing date set and it hasn't closed many times, it's because something with the mortgage application that the loan is just not cleared to close yet. And that's very common because the mortgage process takes a while here. Sometimes it's title issues. So you can have the mortgage cleared to close, but you can have looming title issues that have to be resolved before you can actually schedule a closing date. And sometimes it's actually just scheduling. There's so many parties involved here in New York because you have buyer attorney, seller attorney, buyers, sellers, bank attorneys, sometimes co-op attorneys, and the brokers. So there's so many parties involved that sometimes it just takes a while to get something on the calendar that everybody can agree to. So several reasons why that can be. Is it common here in Queens? Yes, it is common. We tell people when you're selling a residential property that you can expect 60 on or about 60-day closing, and many times it runs into the third month. It runs into the 90 days. So we usually tell people between 2 and 3 months that you can expect to close, barring any other like major delay issues, but usually 60 to 90 days. And then for a co-op, we usually say it's on or about 90-day close, and with the extra 30 days, you get to 120 days, which is 4 months, and it's very common that you actually run into the fourth month. So yes, it's very common because there's so many different variables and things that can cause a delay. And then even with the scheduling, like I mentioned, is there something you can do to speed up the process? So here in Queens, the main thing that you can do to speed up the process, have a good agent. So your agent, if they're really experienced, your agent and their team will be able to push a deal along, because a good agent will be asking about what's happening with your loan, where are you in the steps, is there anything that they can do to help speed along the mortgage application process. And then in terms of title, a good agent will also be on top of title to find out what came back in the title report. Are there any issues that we need to resolve? And if there's any issues, your agent will know how to resolve them, or they'll actually have professionals that can help to expedite solving any looming issues with title. A good agent is just going to be able to push the deal along and help you close as soon as possible. Because what can happen is that if you don't have a proactive agent, or if you're going it alone, then what can happen is that, all these parties, banks, your loan officer, the agents, the listing agent, the attorneys, they all have multiple clients. And so in order to make sure that your file stays at the top of the stack, you need someone on your side that's pretty much pushing and hounding everyone to make sure that your deal is getting prioritized. All right, so hopefully hopefully you find that helpful or informative. If you have any questions related to this topic specifically, feel free to reach out to us at queenshometeam.com/help. And if you have any suggestions or comments for future videos that we can shoot that you would find helpful, please drop them in the comments below. We look at all your comments, and the comments we get with actual questions and suggestions, those are our favorite, because it gives us ideas for future videos and future topics to cover on our YouTube channel or on our podcast. All right, so thanks as always for tuning in, y'all. Stay tuned for the next episode. Take care and have a great day.